Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast on the Scoop sub-channel. Today, I have a phenomenal leader, resilience trainer, my mentor. That's right, y'all heard it. One of my mentors that got me to this where I'm at right now, because this guy right here had imposter syndrome time 1,000. But Mary P made sure she said, you will be okay. Trust the process, know yourself, be who you are. I know Mary P, but I'm going to introduce y'all to Mary P right now. So Mary P is the founder and CEO of Lead Well LLC, a leadership development company focusing on emotional intelligence and resilience training. She is currently a third-year doctoral student at William James College in the Leadership Psychology program. Mary is also the author of the book, Your Final Debrief. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Your Final Debrief, a military transition blueprint, helping veterans navigate the emotional and psychological shift of leaving the service. Mary served 23 years in the United States Air Force and multiple high-level leadership positions, with her final assignment as a senior enlisted advisor to the Air Force Resilient Directorate at the Air Force headquarters in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mary P to the Scoop channel. Mary, how you doing today?
I'm hyped now. This is great. I'm doing great. This is quite an intro. Thank you so much.
Look, man, I was so excited to when I reached out to you and you said, sure, when? I said, okay, I'll be back. Let me go ask Sean, when can we do it? Because I want you to be the first one to come on. Because in the transition space, like we're always transition. I remember when we had our first communication talk, it was like you will always transition. You're always in a transition. And your book, The Final Debrief, this right here is so phenomenal. So if y'all haven't received the book or got the book, go online. We're going to be talking about, we're going to touch on some key points. But like I said, I know Mary. I want y'all to know Mary too. So Mary, tell a little bit about what's the scoop on Mary? Who is Mary? Who is Mary P?
We need lots of time for that. No. Okay, who am I? So I am like you said, I'm the company owner of Live and Lead Well, leadership development, but I also run a crafting company too, where I do live classes, super fun, get to color with my students. It's a great time. I am a person who dabbles in all things that keep me curious and growing. You had mentioned, I'm in school still full time. So that's been probably one of the most transformative experiences of my life, for sure. We are currently living in Maryland. I'm the mom of a brand new learner's permit driver. So send prayers. And so she's 15 and our son is 12. And my husband's amazing. He's a tennis instructor and he just holds us down. So that's a little bit about me. And then you mentioned I was in the Air Force too. So I did some time there.
And, you know, Mary, the first time when we connected was when I was going through my Resilience and Building Leadership Professional Trainer certification. And shout out to my other mentor, Todd Simmons, it's like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that you're good to go. I'm going to have Mary be your coach to sit for the certification exam. And I was so nervous. I did not know what I was going to do as me being a resilient trainer in the Air Force, but this was different, right? This is me on the transition side, you know, life after duty service. And we had a lot of conversations. So I just want to say I would not be sitting in this seat right here if we didn't connect.
Well,
back in 20. I'm telling you that right now, right? Because I was in a downward spiral, and I just needed some structure because I did not know how to transition. Like I had the military ingrained in me for a little over 20 years, and I was like a fish out of water.
Yeah. Well, I think that right there is the power and the testimony for the veteran support for each other. Because when I was coming out of the service, active duty, I might have thought I was as mentally prepared as I was going to be, but I wasn't. And that, you know, people like Todd who stepped in and shared information, and other mentors that I looked up to as well during that time of my life. It's huge. It's so huge to just have someone to bounce stuff off of I'm feeling this way. Is this normal? Yeah, it's normal. Doesn't matter what you say, it's normal. Right? So yeah, so thanks for that. But yeah, it's important to have each other.
So tell me, what made you start putting this book together? Like you, what would you crafting at the time? Like, would you sit down doing your craft? Like, you know what? I'm gonna put this book together. Like, what made you say I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna call it Your Final Debrief?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
It's such a good question.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've been asked it in that way. So truth be told, I was actually writing another book. So this was at the precipice of my, I would like to say, like, my healing journey, because I had hit a major wall. And that's kind of an understatement. I was diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety. I think I was at 20 years in. And so during that time, I really committed to myself to just kind of putting everything else on hold and just taking care of me. And so as I was diving in and really doing the work, I started to discover all these things about how I was feeling, and I just addressed them instead of running from them like I had been for 20 years. And so as they were coming up to the surface, I don't know why, but I felt compelled to share this publicly. I wasn't expecting anyone to care or even reply, but it was almost therapy for me to, like, this is my truth, this is what I'm feeling, and it's okay. And so as I shared that publicly, wow, the demand signal coming back to me privately and on the posts was loud. And it was, I think we need to talk about this a little bit more in the veteran space, because, it's in all spaces, like you had mentioned prior to us recording, it is all of us, right? But at the same time, there is something unique about the veteran world and going from active duty into civilian life. And so I was writing another book at the time. And I put that on hold, and I was sitting in the pickup line for my son one day, and I had a notebook, and I said, something told me you're supposed to be writing a book for veterans specifically. And here's the outline. And I wrote the outline in 15 minutes. And then so started my journey of daily writing for 45 minutes until my manuscript was done. And then I went through the process of, working on it. So that was really what it was. I felt it really wasn't even my decision. It was sort of just like this pull, which I always say, Kingsley, when you get quiet, you get all the answers, right?
That is so true, because when I was reading it, so this was published, because I remember when you was doing my helping me with my training, you said, "Oh, I'm almost finished with the book. It's almost complete. It's about to go live. I'm nervous. It's called The Final Debrief." Yeah. And the question I asked you, I was like, "Well, why did you name it that? Like, why your final debrief?"
Yeah. So that name popped into my head because I was thinking, when pilots come out of a sortie, and we go through an exercise, and we have this right after that, there's a debrief, and it's where you're asked a lot of questions. You're asked what happened on the mission, and you're also given information, right? So it's this sort of back and forth. And for me, this sort of what I wanted to share in the book was sort of the final, let's debrief. How was it? What happened in the career, in the time you were in the service? What was it that you need to reflect on, that you need to gain from, so that when you step into the next chapter of your life, you're even more aware and prepared? And so that's really why the name and I actually, behind the scenes info, I actually tried, in my mind was like second guessing the name. I think I should change it. I went back and forth. I came up with 10 other titles, and then something said, no, that ain't it. It's Your Final Debrief. That's just what it is. So, yeah.
And because you're right. So, anytime you have a major mission, or you're doing something, you put on an event, you do a debrief, like, hey, what was right, what was wrong, how can we do it better? Okay, next time when we have this, we need to do that. So it's like, rechecking the checks and balances, right? Okay, so now your final debrief from your transition. We talk about the military space, but also people who haven't even experienced the military, your final debrief from your last job, or your final debrief from college or high school.
Yeah.
Now you're transitioning to the next chapter. Mm-hmm. So this book right here, Don't get it twisted, people. Like it's not just for veterans, right? It's for everybody and any human that has a transition, right? Because this is the scoop. So y'all hearing it first time on a different spin.
Yeah.
The way how we have to think about your final debrief, right, from your last event, for you to change over to your next. And one of the things that you put in your forward, so I'm going to give them a little snippet because I really want them to get the book, because I mean this thing has so much jewels and gems. I was excited. I wrote this down. It says, you have to design your next chapter, not a mentor, a family member, not society, but you. That's what you said in your book.
I did say that. And now there's always context. So
right, and that's why I said, can you explain that, right? Yeah. Because it hit me differently. I was like, man, that's right. Like, no, in my mind, I'm like, okay, nobody cares. Work harder. Like it's me. I have to depend on me first, so others could depend on me. How can I be there for others? Like you told me, how can I be there for others if I'm not there for myself?
Yeah, and I like to also lots of different ways to say that, but you get to design the next chapter of your life. And also, it's not that you don't have a circle of trusted agents that you lean on to bounce things off of. I couldn't recommend that enough, right? We just mentioned that. That's important. But it's the fact that you don't have to follow anyone else's blueprint anymore. You don't have to hit boxes that are going to get you to a XYZ anymore if you don't want to. You get to design it exactly as you envision it. And finding the vision can be challenging, which is what I go through in detail in the book of how to sort of set that vision up for yourself. But yeah, you are the one. No longer have to rely on anyone else for that. And it can be simultaneously frightening and liberating, and that's okay. Lean into it.
Right, because man, so I'm thinking like when I read your book, like wow, my final debrief, like when you and I had the conversation, you was like, well, what do you want to do? I didn't have that answer.
Yeah, that's okay.
And you know what you told me? You said it's okay. It's totally okay. It's okay not to have the answer right now, but as long as you're searching for it, as long as you're trying to seek it, you're trying to find it, you're trying to find who you are. Who is Kings? That's what you told me. Who is Kings? What does Kings want to do? Not the military Kings. What does Kings want to do?
Yeah. And
how do you want to make that impact?
That's a really, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of veterans hold guilt and shame around, is that they don't have an answer to that I don't know. When someone says, oh, we do this our entire, if you're in 4 years or 40 years, inevitably someone's going to say, what's next for you? And you always have to have that prepared answer. And if you're staying in the service, it's easy, right? Because you're supposed to have goals and you're supposed to know what you want next. But when it comes to the next chapter, because we've grown accustomed to having that answer, we might feel shame or guilt or less than for not knowing. And I have to remind everyone, it is not only okay not to know, it's probably better if you don't know, because that means you're leaving yourself a pause to say, let me actually do a little bit of research here on myself and figure out what I should be doing to live a fulfilling life. Because I can tell you, there's 1,000,001 things and resources that could lay out for you to go live a functioning life. But I want you to live a fulfilling life where you're excited about the next day as you lay your head down to sleep. And so that is okay not to know. In fact, it gives you a chance to kind of clean slate everything.
And that rolls right into your second. Look, the second page of the book. I like, wow, it's jewels from page 1 to the end of the book. And the second one you put, I used like, keep an open mind. Take what hits, leave what doesn't. Contemplate on what causes a spark. There's no right or wrong way to transition out of the military. There's only your way.
Yeah. So my reasoning for stating it in that way is this. It's impossible, and it should not be an expectation of any of us that we read a book or listen to a guest speaker or whatever and think 100% of what they say is going to hit, because it's impossible. They're their own human. I didn't write that book to give you some profound personal knowledge of mine. I wrote it so that you can find your own profound knowledge. And so there's going to be, as you're reading through, take notes of like, that doesn't resonate, or wow, that's exactly where I'm at. And then lean into the areas that you're supposed to be self-evaluating. That's what I really hope folks get from it, is a chance to finally pause and reflect. That's what I want so badly, because I think that is the most overlooked act as we leave the service. It's just grind into the next thing. And then you're just living the same life with a different title, you know?
Man, that is so powerful. In your book, you broke down into 3 parts. The first part is get ready. and if that wasn't a Mike Tyson punch right there, I like, wow, like, how that saying go? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's that Mike Tyson quote, right? So
Yeah.
get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Get ready. So what's the scoop on that, Mary? Like what was you trying to share in your book when you was trying to, tell people, like, hey, get ready for your transition. Don't wait till the transition to happen, but start preparing yourself.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to preface about it, and I do say this in the introduction, this is not a guide to administrative transition. Like, there is going to be no help whatsoever with the to-do list of admin stuff you have to do to leave the service, because all that's taken care of for you. Like, right? TAP is a program that we go through and all that. What I'm really talking about here is that, the first couple chapters, I do take time to thank each veteran for their service. I don't want anyone to skip over that. I know it's kind of could fall on deaf ears because we hear it all the time, but there's stuff I talk about in there that is unique to our experience that I think we need to acknowledge before we leave. Because the acknowledgement of the uniqueness will explain a lot of why some of the difficulties that we have when we're leaving. But yeah, I want you to get ready mentally to kind of just take a deep breath and be open to thinking a little differently and to feeling the feels, which, quite honestly, military members are trained not to feel the feels, and we're trained to put a Band-Aid on it or rub some dirt in it and get back in the fight, figuratively and literally. And so I want us to kind of just get ready for what might be happening as you're feeling the transition upon you. And that doesn't always happen when you're ready. Actually, it probably doesn't ever happen when you're ready to hit the button to separate or retire. It's usually before that, quite a while before that, where you start to feel, I call it in the book, I call it the tug. You start to feel that little pull of like,
Yes.
am I really
Yes.
doing this anymore?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head when you like, you don't want to overlook the thank you for your service. During my time, sometime it fell on my deaf ear, like, people, oh, you're in the military, oh, thank you for your service. But what they really mean is thank you for your sacrifice to the country. Thank you for waking up early in the morning. Thank you for doing those long hours. Thank you for making sure my family is safe. Thank you for your service. Because if you look at it, we are serving a larger demographic, right? The military is very small in percentage. So that thank you for your service. And you, like you said, that's chapter 1 in the book. Mm-hmm. It's like, look, I just want to make sure that I don't overlook that, right? Because I want y'all to know, even from me as being a military, I want to thank you for your service.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too important not to have started off like that. I definitely, as I was coming up in my service time, I always felt good when people said that. I never was like, ugh, no, all right, like it always felt nice. But I never really considered what that might be like and what it might mean. And I think civilians, they just don't know. So when a fellow veteran says it, it's like, hey, yeah, you get it. Like, you get what I lived and what we went through and all of that. And I wanted to take that time to go as deep as I could with letting fellow veterans know, like, we need to stop for a second and acknowledge how special and how unique, and how in that uniqueness, there might be some things that happened that maybe we have to unlearn or undo, or, in the process. And so, because I mean, flat out, if you just look at the facts, what other job in the country that do we have that if you no longer want to do it, you can't give a 2 weeks notice, you'll go to prison if you just leave. Like, there's no other job. There might be cultural backlash for it if you quit, but that you're not going to go to prison. And I think we kind of just step over that. Don't you think? Like, we sign the
Yes.
dotted line and we're just okay with
it. And they call it like a obligation, right? So you have an obligation to fulfill. You say you was gonna do it.
Yeah.
You said it. You signed. You say yes. I will support and defend. I will do this. I will do that.
Yeah.
I'll be the best friend. I will do it.
Yeah.
And that is huge.
Huge. And with that, also the positive to that is, hey, you grow real grit and determination and discipline to, let's say halfway through, you're like, this ain't it. Okay, we got another half to do, right? And so there's mental resilience you're building, and like, so there's a lot of, good things that are going to come out of that, but it shouldn't just be kind of flushed under the, or, swept under the carpet as nothing. It's something. And so I kind of go into those details too. It's really important for us to realize what we did was important.
Yeah. So when people is getting ready for their transition, and then you just touched on it, when it's like, oh man, the end is near. Like, okay, this is something I'm ready to transition from. I'm not ready. And you did mention that in your book, like the end is near, and it's time for that mental shift, right? Because now you have to start preparing for the next.
Mm-hmm.
For the next version of yourself. Because if you're thinking about transitioning, it's not, wherever you're leaving, it's not going to be the same where you're going.
Right. Correct.
Right. So what's like the scoop on what are some advice or suggestions you should give somebody or share with us, like on that the end is near mental shift mindset and the stages of grief?
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. So I think you're going to hear this from me a lot, whether it's here or we connect elsewhere, folks listening. I cannot state this enough to give yourself grace. Like, the process of stepping into something new means you're leaving something behind. And that should be acknowledged, and it's okay to process through that. I know when I started to feel like, my mind kind of came up because here I was, I had achieved a rank I had worked for probably my entire career. I would say after the first enlistment, I really wanted to do well and, promote and all that. So here I get promoted to this rank that is supposed to feel like you arrived. And when I got there, I just felt more tired, and it wasn't it. And why wasn't it? Because it was supposed to be it. And why didn't I feel this thing everyone says I should feel? And so I kind of suppressed that feeling quite a bit, and pushed forward until I couldn't anymore. And that's when I really just hit rock bottom. But the process of just allowing yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to give myself grace. Why? Because this is the first time I've ever done that. I've ever done this. And I think what's great about that statement is, Kingsley, it can be used all the time. No, today is the first day that I've been this age doing this thing, right? Feeling these feelings. You can use it all the time, and it's an opportunity for you to just give yourself grace to say, hey, maybe I won't be so hard on myself as I'm trying to figure out this next thing. But yeah, that for me was very unnerving, because why didn't I feel the same way about my service and my job and my rank that I did 5-6 years ago, where I was hyped and bleeding blue, as we say in the Air Force, and drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, why wasn't I so hyped? And it was because, it was time. I was growing in different ways. And so I just, instead of fighting it any longer, I just said, let me figure out what this is. And then I started asking the questions, which were not easy to answer.
Yeah, man, it's and those questions, sometimes, like you said, it's left unanswered, but at least you have it written out, right? Because
Yeah.
you talk about that roadmap for a smooth transition, right? And one of the things that you did share with me, and I still do it to this day, is write it out in your handwriting so you could see it. It's like holding yourself accountable. Like write it in your handwriting so when your eyes see your handwriting,
Yeah.
it means something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. I know a lot of people, like some of these best practices that have changed my life. I don't like that they get a bad rep because self-reflection is so vital to our journey. Like if you got to stop and you got to think, just sit with it. Um, and again, just being, like you said, I guess I had mentioned writing it down in your own handwriting. I actually just went back to a journal this morning because I wanted to see how I viewed something in that excerpt. And it was like, oh, that's where I was in that space. It just provides so much additional curiosity for figuring out who you are, essentially.
Yeah. And you said figure out who you are. So, you know, I don't know if anybody caught on. She said, "Yeah, I rose to the rank." Let me tell y'all something. For the ones that are not military fluent in the military language, top of the rank, like she achieved 1% of the enlisted force. That was Mary P.
Mm.
So 99% did not achieve the rank that she did. That is huge, and let alone the small number of serving in the service is small, but just met that percentage, 1% of the enlisted force, and that's mandated by Congress. So that's like you can't slide somebody else in like that. It goes by numbers, and she achieved that. But remember, she was Chief P in there, but she had to transition to Mary P
Mm-hmm.
coming out,
Yep.
and the Mary P that wrote this book, and the Mary P that has the craft that's going on, that's bringing people together. That's people probably don't even know how to do crafts, but she's like, I'm gonna hold a class for y'all.
Yeah.
Come on, we'll start with the bracelets. Look, I have mine on. I was like, we'll start something real simple to show that you could do it.
Yeah.
But it's that transition. It's like you said, separate your identity from the military. Separate yourself from the job that you're leaving to the job that you're going. You have to have that separation because it's sometimes is that tug of war. That's how it was with me. It was that I had to let that CNCO mindset go because when I got to the other side, they was like, okay, they told me this cool story, bro, but this is he said, oh, you was that in the military? Oh, cool story, bro. Okay, what is that? So okay, so you use an Air Force, so you flew planes. That's what they thought. Oh, you flew plane? Like, no, I was in law enforcement. Oh, okay, so you was a cop who flew plane? Like, no, I actually, I did this and this and this. They said, oh, okay, so that separation. And how would you share that in a little tidbit of how do you even start that process to separate the uniform from the individual?
Yeah. I think, perspective and widening your viewpoint, I think is huge. Um, I know that I've come across people who the rank was their whole personality. And I mean, I feel like the uniform was my whole personality. The Air Force was just I completely lost my identity in the uniform. And that was a detriment to my own personal growth. I've since made up time and I've really, flipped that on its head, but I could say that about me. I know people who've lost their identity in their position and their rank, which then provides sort of a false sense of who they are and how they show up. And that's a really difficult transition to make from someone of, seemed importance to a regular person where no one knows you, I guess. And that can be a hard pill to swallow. So I would say, if it was in my case where you lost yourself in the uniform, or if you lose yourself in the rank, I would say take a step back and start peeling back that onion of who you actually are. What are your real values? How do you want to show up in this world, with the people you care about, with the people you work with? Like, who is that person? Does that person care a whole bunch? Or maybe they're they bring their gifts and talents in an analytical way. Maybe they're a problem solver. Like, focus more on your actual skills and talents than what you've earned via rank or uniform. Because I promise you, that stuff I just mentioned is transferable. Your uniform and your rank are not transferable. Like, no one cares what rank you are.
No,
No
that is spot on. When I heard, when somebody told me, they like, "Oh, cool story, bro," I knew what time it was. I like, okay,
good for
that
you
doesn't
for
matter.
picking
Yeah,
up
good
on
for
that.
you. Yeah. Okay, good for you. Okay, what are you doing now? Like what are you doing now? And
Yeah.
that you put it in the book in chapter 9. It says, commit to the process.
Yeah.
Commit to the process. Design your life.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you want to be? How do you want to contribute to society?
Mm-hmm.
This is the transition. Remember, we're talking about the final debrief, your final debrief, the transition.
Yeah. Yeah. Designing your life the way you want it seems daunting at best when you've designed and committed to someone else's vision and mission for so long. It's like, where do I even start? And hopefully, the 9 questions that I put in there, it gives you a really great starting point of, like, you don't know where to start, just start here. But, without reading the book, you don't have to read the book to know that. I think the very first thing is just, what do you value? I think it's really super important for you to understand what you value. And if it aligns with what you used to do in the service, that's great. But if it doesn't, that's okay. Like, my values, when I got clear on them, I always share this. When I got clear on my values and I bumped them up against the next position that they were putting me in for, or, reviewing me for, it was total opposite. And I was like, oh, well, that's a hard pass. Like, I can't do that because now I'm clear. I was foggy before, and I just did what mentors told me I should do and what I was being, kind of groomed in the positions for. And now I was like, wait, I want this. This feels good. This is the opposite. Why would I do that? And then the no's become a lot easier, because it's like, no, that's not in alignment. And there's nothing to feel bad about for that. Like, it doesn't align. So it's time to step into things that do,
And that's huge. And so what I've seen, I haven't experienced this yet. I'm sure I will. Like when you do that first transition outside of military service, you get into a job or your next thing, and then you get to like, I don't like this. I want to do something else. Or, you know what, this is not me. I want to do something else. And it's okay, because that was one of my fears, right? Of failing. Like, okay, I was so great in this organization, and now I got to start back at zero, right? I got to start at the ground up. I got to start. I'm not coming in at the same level, right? It just, it doesn't, for me, it didn't transfer. So what I did in my journey, I came in at the company I was at as an intern. I said, look, you taking a chance on me, I appreciate it. I'm going to show you my value that I bring. Watch and see. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make my dash count. Watch. I'm going to show you. Just give me this opportunity. Yeah. And that's what a lot of veterans, I think, that's transitioning, that had their final debrief, that's in that pivot point, is to take a chance on me. Mm-hmm. But you told me this, I'll never forget it. Take a chance on yourself first, and others will take a chance on you. Mm-hmm. Like, and we talking, and we talked 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. We talked 3 years ago. By the way, I'm going up for my recertification too. That's how I know it's 3 years ago, because it's every 3 years. So I'm coming up. So I'm getting my recertification because it helped me a lot. Like it helped me grow as a human. It helped me grow as a dad. It helped me grow as a son. Mm-hmm. It just helped me go. And then you put in your book part 3, like it's so. Remember, I told y'all it's three parts of Mary book. And the final part is the reminders, is the family transition too,
Uh,
and your final briefing. So
yeah.
can you just touch on that? Like, it's not just you. Like I said, like I have myself, my daughter, my mom, my dad. Like, is families also transition? So can you share? What's the scoop on that? On that part 3 of the book?
Yeah, that was wow, that was a really important piece for me to make sure was in there because um I was extremely present in my process of leaving the service. And one of the things I found, listen, me and my husband were not without bumps. Okay. Like there was some rocky road, especially because I went from being out of the house for like 12, 13 hours a day to always being here. That was hard. Like that was difficult. So, but how we got through it was really talking it out, like being honest, like, hey, I need some space. I need alone time, or hey, let's actually go for take advantage and go for a coffee date at 10 a.m. or whatever the case was, right? So communicating what you're feeling with your family, I can't stress enough, because here's the thing. Likely, when you're getting to retire or separate, you are sharing the highlights with your loved ones. You're sharing either those highlights look like, I cannot wait to stop all these evaluations I have to do, or I can't wait to walk away from this toxic work and I just can't wait to be free, right? It could look like that. Or it could be, man, I'm so excited about stepping into this next job or going back to school or whatever it is. On a positive or on a negative, it doesn't matter. You're likely giving the highlights. And so it's important that you share most things, if not everything, because let's go down that analogy. Let's say you've been so fed up and you're tired and you're ready to go, which is totally normal, right there with you, and you're ready to go. Well, on the other end of that, you might have feelings of isolation, or you miss the camaraderie, or you miss the structure. There's things that you're craving, and you may not feel comfortable saying that, because then your significant others or your family might be like, I thought you were ready to go. Like, what's this all about? Right? And so then you will keep that to yourself, and that's not healthy. And so I recommend that prepping the battle space, if you will, for your transition, of saying, hey, people have been telling me that my wave of emotions is kind of going to be all over the place. There may be days I'm super excited. There may be days where I'm terrified. Like, just hang on, you know? And then also opening the conversation to saying, what are you thinking about this transition? Like, how are you if you are, how are you hesitant? How are you excited? Like, what are the things you're thinking about? Are you nervous about? Are you, over the moon about? Like, open up these conversations with kids, with spouses, because I promise you, when you all sort of have this air of clarity and vulnerability, you're only going to get closer.
Wow, that is huge, and that's
Yeah.
one thing I remember in my transition time is the other people who was there, like during the hard times, during the self-doubt,
Yeah.
during the deployments. They had to hold down the fort while I was going, all of that. And now, not only is your life going to change, their life is going to change as well.
Yeah.
Get
And
their input.
and their life with you changes
Right.
because you change.
Right.
So that could be unnerving to a lot of people. Like, well, I know I've talked to a lot of veteran spouses who have shared with me the struggles their spouse went through leaving the
Mhm.
service. In fact, my own mom shared with me, my dad served in the Navy for 23 years. And she told me he had the hardest time when he left. Now, he left back in like 75. We're talking a long time ago, but he had a hard time. And I don't think his struggles are any different than ours today when we leave. He went from, being a chief in the Navy to uh, not working, being fully retired and at home with now 8 kids. I love him. You know what I mean? Like that's a huge transition, right? But I think, and also it was less likely for folks to talk about their experiences back then. So I'm sure it made it very difficult for him. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to open up those lines for sure.
And then it rolls right into one of the last parts I want to touch on, because we could be here for hours, because you and I, we both love to talk, and sometimes I forget that others gonna see it. And look, y'all gonna come back, y'all gonna look at this 5 years from now and be like, wow, y'all remember when Kingsley and Mary P was on there talking about this stuff, and it's still relevant today.
Still relevant, yeah.
Still relevant.
Yeah.
Your final briefing. That's how you closed off the book. Your final briefing.
Yeah.
Wow. So is that day your final briefing day?
Yeah.
How was that for you, and like for the ones that's gonna come in and listen to this, and they're trying to get the scoop, because that final briefing day is coming.
Mm-hmm. You know, I want to say that, like, expect to be surprised. Expect to be surprised in good ways, in curious ways. You said it in the beginning, and when you quoted that I shared, there's no wrong way to do this, and I think that should take all the weight mentally and physically and psychologically off your shoulders. There's no wrong way to do this. There isn't. Because the thing is, you had said you wanted to jump, go into the next job, and it was you were nervous, and what if I jump around from jobs and da da. There's no wrong way. If you want to go into the next job right away, do it. If you want, lean in. But then what I recommend is simultaneously put time aside for yourself, something that we were not encouraged to do in the service. Start doing that for you, because you're going to start to uncover things. And then that's going to lead you into the next part, the next evolution of where you're supposed to be going, not where your mentor says you're supposed to go, or your spouse, where you are, right? And I think there's a lot of peace in knowing that you can't do this wrong if you just turn to yourself. And if you do, when I said, you're never going to lose when you bet on yourself, you will never lose, because you're finally getting quiet and finally listening to the things you had been ignoring for so long. I also don't want to set people up to think that that's easy. I don't think it's easy. I think it's the most rewarding thing you can do, but it's also challenging because you're probably not used to doing it. Like I said, we have been trained, and that is a conditioning process to get back in the fight. And so to stop and pause for a moment, my biggest piece of advice I always share people, it's simple, it's not easy. And that is 5 minutes a day of silence, and just sit with the quiet and see how that feels. And it's not going to feel good at first. It's going to be like, I have all this to do, and this is counterproductive, and I should be going, and I'm not doing enough, and I'm not. And then you start asking the question of yourself, why do I feel like I'm not doing enough? It's 5 minutes. Why do I feel like I have to keep going? It's just 5 minutes. And then you're going to start to realize that we've really been in a system that has told us if we throttle back or rest for any period of time, someone will pass us up. We'll miss a promotion. We'll miss an opportunity. We'll miss. When in reality, rest is productive, and rest is where we get the answers to the next part of our evolution. And so rest assured, you're not going to do it wrong, and give yourself some time back, because you deserve it.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Because I was going to ask you, I said, what's one thing that you would share on the school, like the scoop? So as you being the first to come on this sub channel, I had a thought of ask the guest, what is one thing that you want to share with the next guest on, and who's listening?
I have it.
What internal scoop would you give them to keep moving forward?
It carries on from what I said, but it's more succinct. Turn down the volume. Turn down the volume. Turn it down. Whether that's people's voices, whether that's the opinions and the judgment of others, whether it's your own internal narrative that's been telling you what to do for all this time, that's pressuring you. If you're the kind that tells yourself, I'm my own worst critic as a defense mechanism so that others can't hurt you, turn that down. Be your best advocate. Be the softest place for you to fall initially. Like the world is tough. The life is lifing, right? And sometimes
Oh yeah.
it gets to the point where you're just like, dang. But if you
Yeah.
turn down the volume, both physically, literally, and figuratively, and start allowing yourself to just be, because I always tell people, I heard this someplace, somewhere, but we are human beings. We are not human doings. And so just let yourself be and see what emerges. And I promise you, you're gonna find out some really interesting things. So that's what I would say.
Wow, thank you. And for the ones who just popped in, this is what we've been talking about right here. Your final debrief. Take a snapshot, screenshot. But Mary, how can they get a copy of your book? Like where can they go to find you? How can they connect with you? Because you need to be in everybody's library right now. I'm telling you that right now. Like this right here, this collection of memories and collection of thoughts, right? Because you said it's not a guided note. It's a collection of thoughts and something for you to consider during your final, your final debrief, your journey through life. Consider this right here. But Mary, yes, how can they reach out to you? How can they get your book? How can they be a part of the movement?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a great compliment to hear you say that about the book. I truly appreciate that. Yeah, so I am very active and I love to connect on LinkedIn. So that's one place for connection. And then also my website, liveandleadwell.org. Over there, I actually want to kind of let you know there's a free resource tab. And so I have a free seminar for folks to access. That's called How to Design Your Life Post Service. So this goes into a lot of detail for what you can do. It's a lot of taken from the book, but a lot of additional things. And then I have other free resources that folks can have and download to help them along their journey. So liveandleadwell.org. There's the book sale tab, and then also the free resources. Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you. So y'all heard it here on the scoop. Another vet share our story success. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for coming. Don't forget, grab a copy of her book. Until next time on the scoop, we see y'all. Peace.
Thank you.